At some stage,
Right.
that has to have been created. So who has done that? I mean, people will be watching this thinking they're watching a new real-life version of The Matrix here. Who created this avatar world you're talking about?
Here's the hook. Piers is saying what we're all thinking. If this isn't straight out of the Matrix, I don't know what is.
Right. So the way I'm trying to approach this mathematically is to have a mathematical notion of consciousness, which can vary in its size to infinity. And so I start off with an infinite consciousness, but it's mathematically defined using Markov chains and so forth. And then it turns out that there's a mathematics that I discovered, a logic on the space of all Markov chains that allows me to say there's this big infinite one. In fact, there's many infinite ones, but we can all be projections. Interesting, what traces is the technical term, traces of this higher consciousness. And when you look at the trace operation, there's a whole logic of traces, and that logic actually gives you time dilations and length contractions in a very interesting fashion. So the idea is we'll start off with not just a hand wave about consciousness, a precise mathematical model using Markov matrices, and then a new logic that I discovered working on with mathematician Chetan Prakash. He proved it was a real logic. And then we were together looking at the fact that this thing gives you the time dilations, length contractions of special relativity. So the idea is that we might, for the first time, have a hint about how you could start with a mathematical model of consciousness prior to space-time and show how space-time itself comes out as just one of an infinite number of interesting projections that you could have of that one matrix. And in the model, there are an infinite number of these matrices. So what we're seeing is not just a headset projection of reality, we're seeing a headset projection of one kind of an infinite reality. There's an infinite number of these infinite realities. So there's a lot to explore, and space-time then is not the final frontier.
This is where Hoffman loses most people. Infinite realities, space-time, not final frontier. You can almost hear the viewers reaching for the popcorn.
See, I always have a problem with the word infinity and infinite, because no human brain can ever explain to me what that really is, because it's all very well to say, well, it's what it says on the tin. It's infinite. It's never ending. It's never starting. It just, whatever it is. How do you explain? I mean, when I ever have this conversation, for example, with atheists, I'm a Christian, I'm a Catholic, and I say, well, the reason I believe in God is because I think there must have been and must be a superior entity that can answer the one question no atheist can ever answer, which is, well, what was there before the Big Bang? What was there before nothing? What is nothing? What is infinity? Right? Infinity is an illogical thing for a human brain to comprehend, right? Because we always have to have a beginning and an end of something. And if there's no beginning and end of something, what is it? Because a human brain can't tell me that, and never has been able to, I assume there must be a higher power.
Classic Piers cuts through the jargon and drops the God card. This is where the debate shifts from math to faith.
Well, so there's an interesting point here. I agree that infinity is a very difficult concept to wrap your head around. And in mathematics, there's not just one infinity, there's a whole hierarchy of an infinite number of infinities called Cantor's hierarchy. So just the counting numbers is the smallest infinity, but then you can go from there to even higher and higher infinities. But I take your point quite well that scientific theories themselves have fundamental limitations, that there's something that will transcend. So I take that point quite well. And I would say it this way. I would say that every scientific theory starts off with assumptions. And those assumptions are things that the theory does not explain.
Notice the flip. Hoffman just admitted that every science runs on miracles. That's going to fuel the critics who say this all sounds like religion with extra math symbols.
It assumes. So for that theory, you could think of them as these are the miracles that the theory is asking you to accept. For example, Einstein said, if you grant me that the speed of light is the same for all inertial observers, and that there is no special inertial frame, the laws of physics are the same in all inertial frames, then I can give you space-time, and it works. But why should the speed of light be the same in all inertial frames? Why should all inertial frames be the same? The laws of physics be the same? Einstein assumed that he didn't prove that, and so those are the miracles of his theory. And science will always have theories that start with assumptions. So there's no theory of everything in science. There's infinite job security in science. You can never run to the final theory, and that's really good for job security. But it means that we have to be very humble. Our theories are just as deep as we've been able to penetrate so far.
But do you not
And
find
ultimately-
but do you not find the concept of infinity ludicrous? Because I do. Like whenever I hear scientists, really smart people, you're obviously one, when I hear them talk about infinity as a real thing, I was like, well, what is it? I mean, just from a simple, call me the village idiot if you like, but from a simple village idiot perspective, how can something be infinite?
This is the moment. Piers boils down the whole discussion into one blunt question. It's sharp, it's skeptical, and it's going to resonate with the audience.
Well, of course, the standard idea about that in terms of just counting numbers is that if you take any number as big as you want, you can always find a number bigger than that. So that means there's no such thing as the biggest number.
Yeah, but if you go to the smallest number, which is, say you start at the smallest number, say let's take 1 as an operative thing. What is naught? What is nothing?
Actually, the way we think about it is we can choose any number and take that to be the 0. So there's sort of
Yeah,
a
but that's
trend
very
when we call it
convenient. But that's a mathematical way of looking at it. Whereas the logical human way of looking at it is, how can you have something which is never beginning, never ending? It makes no logical sense to a simple human brain, does it?
Well, of course, I guess there's 2 ways to take your question. One is to say, can I write down mathematics that shows me that that's the case? And I can. But if I say, can I wrap my head around it in some way that cognitively makes sense? No, I agree. It's very, very difficult. And the whole Cantor's hierarchy completely blows my mind. So all the infinities, the infinity of infinities completely
Well, the
blows my
idea of
mind.
having sort of superior infinities is even more preposterous, I think. Now, here's the other issue I have with your theory, which is fascinating. And I'm fully aware you put a lot of work and effort into this with a very expert brain. But say, for example, as we're talking now, the ceiling falls on your head, breaks your nose, breaks your arm, breaks your leg, and incapacitates you, and you get taken to hospital. Is your position that that hasn't really happened? Because in a virtual reality game, you can kill things and blitz things, but nobody actually gets hurt. If you were genuinely suffering bone fractures, are you saying that isn't really happening?
This is where Piers wins the audience. He brings the conversation back down to earth. If pain is just pixels, why does it hurt so much?
I think so it really does hurt, and I avoid pain so as much as anybody else does. Though I think a good metaphor to understand this, though, is if you have an icon on the desktop of your laptop, and it's some important file that you're working on, some paper you're writing, or a message you're about to send. If you carelessly drag that icon to the trash can, you will lose your work. Now, your icon might be blue and rectangular in the middle of the screen, but your file is not blue and rectangular and in the middle of the screen. The icon is a useful interface device to let you interact with the file, to copy it or delete it and so forth. But you know that even though the file isn't literally blue and rectangular.
And that's where we'll leave it. What do you think? Is this just a fiction dressed up in equation, or are we really living in some kind of matrix? Let me know in the comments below. If you found this breakdown helpful, hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe with the notification on, and share this video so more people can join the conversation. Don't forget to check the pinned comment for the link to more exclusive content.